With the onset of the mechanism of corporate social responsibility in this part of the world, we got to understand the dynamics of how it functions. Corporate social responsibility is not a very new phenomenon in the West. The West has certainly, to a certain extent, understood that corporate social responsibility cannot be alienated as a social responsibility of the corporates. They, in fact, have embedded within the systems, or at least they're making an effort to amalgamate in their systems in such a way that they call it corporate responsibility. It's a challenge. It's a challenge because I remember the words of Henry Ford Jr., who said that businesses have an inherent capacity to deliver social imperatives because they always function in a constrained financial and administrative environment. I do feel that the best innovative ideas comes when you have a constraint on policy, you have a constraint on finance, on natural resources, on human resources, and so on. This is the generation which is actually at a very, very thin line, which is going to decide on grounds of social responsibility and sustainability of what you're going to hand over to your kids, to the next generation, and what are they going to inherit. It becomes a challenge when we, in this constrained environment, when we have to implement certain issues of social responsibility, newer ideas have to germinate. You have to look and figure out the tree in the seed, and the seed has to be sown today for the generations to come. This is where I open the complete forum to all of you. I was having a discussion with Barry while having a tea, and he came across one of the best proverbs that I have ever heard in my life, to be very frank, ladies and gentlemen, that you got to actually transform CSR from enforcement to engagement. And as long as this transition doesn't happen, the polarity of thoughts will stand where it is. And I'm 100% sure, and I'll open the forum up with Barry to speak first, as to what is his thoughts on trying to solve what is solvable and to keep out what is not. And how do you maintain that transition together?
Thank you. What we do in our organization, Polarity Partnerships, is essentially work with any organization that we have the privilege to work with to start by identifying two classes of issues that they have to deal with. One are issues that are problems to solve and to support them in solving those problems. But we also are paying attention to what are those issues that are inherently unavoidable and unsolvable. And if you treat a polarity or a paradox or a dilemma, it's called different things in the literature, but these are issues that are inherently unavoidable and unsolvable. And if you treat them as if they're a problem to solve, you're in trouble from that point forward. And so a couple of examples of how this distinction works at the global level. When we look at the issue of global warming, for example, that's a problem to solve. A problem to solve is to whether humans are contributing to global warming, whether global warming is taking place, and the degree to which humans are contributing to it. That's a problem to solve. There's an underlying polarity in relation to global warming that is inherently unsolvable, and that's the natural tension between focusing on national interests and focusing on the environment. The reason that China and the United States did not sign the Kyoto Agreement, for example, is because it was identified as not in the national interest, as if you could choose between national interest and environmental interests. But what I'm suggesting is that is a polarity of interdependency, where it is always in the national interest to take care of those things beyond the national interest, including the environment. So what we're about helping people do is make this distinction between problems you can solve and polarities that you need to leverage. You can't solve them, but you can leverage them. And so rather than see it as a choice that you have to choose, it's actually a false choice, but something that you can, I believe that you can leverage.